For me, the difference playing it is so surreal. It's so resonant. I love that sound. Oh, it's so satisfying. Hey friends, I'm here today at the beautiful showroom of Marshall Burnett, the fantastic guitar luthier. We're conducting a really fun experiment. So I am holding the first, as far as I know, first ever classical guitar, modern classical guitar, strung, or fretted I should say, with gut frets, just like a lute or a Baroque guitar would have been. This is a fun experiment that we decided to do, and we made a whole video about doing this, which you can check out here. And while I'm here, I couldn't resist the opportunity to teach you all about one of the most fascinating topics in music theory that I'm aware, which is called temperaments, or alternate historical tuning systems. Now that this classical guitar has gut frets, we can actually move them to tune in these adjusted temperaments. So I'm going to play some classical guitar pieces that you've probably only ever heard in equal temperament, and we're going to see how it sounds. Now, before we take these gut frets and start sliding them around to explore some historical temperaments, just a quick little history lesson about what are temperaments in the first place. You might not know this, but we're all actually playing in a very specific temperament called equal temperament. It's just become the ubiquitous, accepted tuning system, at least in the West. And what this means is we have a system here of 12 notes per octave. So from E to E, we have divided that octave into 12 even half steps. And every single one of those half steps or semitones is equally divided, so everything you could say is equally out of tune. But the beauty of the system, and I think why it became standardized, is because it allows you to play in all keys, and then all keys sound the same. Historically, if we go to the Renaissance or Baroque period, guitars and lutes have these tied-on gut frets. So the gut frets are the same material as the gut strings, the historical strings. And because they're tied on, you can move them and tune in these alternate tuning systems, which don't divide that octave into 12 equal half steps or semitones. We can compromise. We can make one higher, one lower, and therefore play in certain keys more in tune. So let's play now and teach you how to hear in these really cool historical temperaments. Now, just a word about the setup I have going on here. If you didn't already watch the other video, which you should, we've tied on gut frets to this classical guitar, which is being built for a client. And at a certain point, we can't tie on more frets because we run into this piece here called the heel. So I've had to tape on, normally those would be glued on, frets that would go onto the actual body of the instrument. So this isn't the best looking setup today, but this instrument was never meant to have gut frets. Okay, let's hear what these beautiful temperaments sound like. Let's start with our equally tempered D major chord, a chord that all of us should know. Here it is in equal temperament, and here it is in a temperament called quarter comma mean tone. As you can actually physically see, the frets are quite unequal. Some are spaced very far away, and some are very close. Essentially, the first fret has been raised, the second fret lowered, the third fret raised, the fourth fret lowered. It's basically a system of compromising, right? Some things go up, some things go down, so we can play in certain keys more in tune. So I really hope you can appreciate just how gorgeous that D major chord in mean tone sounds. The reason it sounds so pure is because the major third, the distance between D and F sharp, is a pure major third now, as opposed to equal temperament, which was actually quite sharp. The distance was high, and the fret you can actually physically see here because this guitar has slots for frets. So you can see how far I've moved. It's like 2 millimeters down. So that note was quite a bit painful and sharp. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Wait a minute, this sounds so beautiful, and I hope you can appreciate how beautiful and pure this sounds. You might be thinking, at this point, if this sounds so good, why wouldn't you do this all the time? Why ever play an equal temperament? Well, this is why. This is what an E flat major chord sounds like. Oh, it's very painful. You won't hear any chords in equal temperament sound that bad. But how can the E flat major chord sound so bad when the chord just next to it sounds like heaven? Well, to learn why, we have to understand the concept of enharmonic notes. If we visualize a keyboard, there are white keys and black keys. The white keys are simple to remember because they're just A, B, C, D, E, F, G. There are no sharps and flats. But the black keys, to understand those, we have to understand the concept of sharps and flats. So if we go to the key just to the right of C, we have C sharp or D flat. It's called both of those names simultaneously. Why is that? It's because to sharp something means to raise it by one semitone, or on a piano, one key to the right. However, if you're starting on the note D and you say play D flat, a flat means to lower a note by a semitone, or one key on the piano. Therefore, that key is simultaneously C sharp and D flat. And in modern music where we use equal temperament, we just have to kind of get used to this. Musicians have to know, depending on the context, I might call this a C sharp and I might call it a D flat. However, when you are playing with these unequal temperaments, these early temperaments, you cannot simply play a D sharp when you're supposed to play an E flat, because it'll sound like this. It's not the same note. Essentially, the sharps are lowered and the flats are pushed higher, and that's what allows us to play super in tune some of the time. So here we can really tell E flat is quite high, and this is normally on a guitar supposed to be E flat, but it's low. I can make it sharp. There. Now they're the same note, but listen to how far I had to raise. This is E flat, and that's a D sharp. E flat, D sharp. They're not the same pitch. So this temperament system means that we are limited to specific keys sounding fantastic, better than usual, and other keys sounding terribly wrong. Today's video is brought to you by Classical Guitar Pro. That's my brand new online classical guitar course, which is 6 hours, 53 videos. It's a whole curriculum designed to teach you what you would normally learn in the first 6 months to a year of classical guitar lessons. So if you want to learn classical guitar but are stuck, struggling reading music or struggling to learn the techniques, check out classicalguitar-pro.com to learn more. Let's now play some classical guitar music and have some fun using these temperaments. We'll start with a study by Fernando Sor. Now, I should mention, these pieces I'm going to play weren't meant to be played in temperaments. Sor played an equal temperament because he had a fixed fret guitar. We're just having some fun today. Now, that piece really worked beautifully, and I knew it was going to work because it's in C major, and C major is a great key for quarter comma mean tone. But there's no way this piece would have worked if it was in C sharp major. Ah, beautiful. Now we're going to play some more pieces, but to do so, I'm going to need to teach you another cool little trick. One of the things that players did with gut frets in the Renaissance and the Baroque period is they added tiny little extra pieces of gut glued or taped on to the fretboard to create the difference between those enharmonic notes. So I have this little piece of gut that I've cut out here, and I have a piece of tape, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tape it on the fretboard and create different options for notes. So now, as you can see here, I've taped on this little mini fret, and the mini fret is so cool. It's called a tastino, and a tastino allows you to play either the lower part of the note or the upper part of the note. That means I can play a G sharp or an A flat. Do you hear how the A flat is higher and the G sharp lower? Now this is so cool because what it means is when I play an E major chord, I can have a beautifully pure E major chord because that G sharp, which is the major third that an equal temperament is too high, now I've literally put a lower fret, which means it's the right pitch. Beautiful. Listen now to when I accidentally spell it wrong and I play E and the A flat. That's the wrong note. It's supposed to be a G sharp. But on a piano, you would think of it the same way. I just think this is so cool. On all my early instruments, I use these, and I show up for an early music gig, and I have to know what temperament we're in, and I put on a little Tastini if I need to. I think it's just such a cool thing to work with those enharmonic notes. So now that I have my little Tastino, I can play really good E major chords. So let's try this little prelude by Aguado, first in equal temperament. For me, the difference playing it is so surreal. It's so resonant. I love that sound. Oh, it's so satisfying. Let's try a famous etude by Carcasi. This is etude number 7, first in equal. Let's try some Targa. This is Targa's Lagrima, which is also in E major. This one didn't quite work. Some of the chords sounded gorgeous to me. That E major chord sounds beautiful, beautiful third, gorgeous. But I think even though beautiful chords like that exist, wonderful, nice, yuck. So why doesn't this chord work? It's because it's an F sharp major chord, and I'm playing an A sharp. Supposed to be playing an A sharp, but this is actually a B flat in this temperament, so it's ugly. So unfortunately, no Lagrima, I guess, in mean tone. Just because this is a historical temperament doesn't mean that I can only play historical music. I'm sure you could play a lot of pop music in mean tone temperament and it would sound great. G major sounds beautiful. And that's going to be it for today's video. If you enjoyed this free educational video, please do consider subscribing and maybe even supporting my Patreon, where you can get lots of extra guitar tips and behind the scenes of what's going on in my life. If you missed the video where Marshall Burnett and I got frets on this guitar, please do check that out. And if you want to go even deeper into this idea of temperaments, I strongly recommend you check out the YouTube channel Early Music Sources. They have several videos on the topic, and the whole channel is really fantastic. And if you're a reader, I strongly recommend How Equal Temperament Ruined Harmony by Ross Duffin. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.